I don't want to go.
Well, David, that would kind of have to, really. I mean, you've already announced that you were leaving, and Moffat has already announced me as the Doctor and Karen as the companion, and he's already written all the scripts, and we've already filmed most of the series. So yeah, that might be a bit difficult if you would decide to stay, really. Hello guys, I'm Pickles Parker, and today I will be giving you my review for the New Year's special, The End of Time, Part 2, the last story of the 10th Doctor. Enjoy!
And so it came to pass, on Christmas Day, that the human race did cease to exist. This was the day the Time Lords returned.
Donna, get out of there! Just run!
This is the Doctor's final battle. He must stand at arms, or lose himself and all this world.
A rhythm of four. The heartbeat of a Time Lord.
My head! It keeps getting hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter!
Donna, what was that? The Master is going to kill you. Then kill him first.
Gallifrey rises!
This should be spectacular. Wow! Get out there and find it! Yes, sir.
At last.
Sometimes I think the Time Lord lives too long.
So, before I get into it, just a quick synopsis. So, continuing from last week, everybody is, looks like the Master, the Doctor is being interrogated by the Master, but they escape with the cactus people to a ship, but the Master's going to blow them with missiles, but the Doctor turns off all the power so that they cannot be spotted, that they actually cannot move. The Time Lords realise that the only way they can escape from their end in their Time War is to break through using a link, but the link had to be established before the Time War, which was a link that they established with the Master. With the drums, they bring Gallifrey back and next to Earth and plan to make Earth Gallifrey. The Master is going to join them when the Doctor comes crashing in. He challenges to shoot one of them, but ultimately shoots this machine, so the Time Lords are being sent back, but the Master, rather than the Doctor ending up having to be brought with them, the Master sacrifices himself. The Doctor realizes he's survived it all, but then 4 knocks come, and it's actually Wilf knocking on one of the radiation things, because he's knocked in and he wants to be let out. The Doctor throws a big tantrum before ultimately doing it, but holds off the regeneration to go on a farewell tour, and he goes on the farewell tour, seeing numerous of his companions. Then he ultimately regenerates into Matt Smith's 11th Doctor, Geronimo. The things I love in this episode, which I mentioned in last week's episode, but I do love again here, and it's possibly better here, is the music by Murray Gold. He has really brought out all the stops in terms of music for David Tennant's last story, especially in this, with the brilliant farewell tour music of Veil, which I absolutely love, and then you get Val Dachum, which is Tennant's regeneration music, which I really love as well, and even the track The New Doctor, which is the music that plays when Matt Smith's regenerating, is really good as well. Just Murray Gold puts out all the stops for his music, creating one of the best music in terms, one of the best episodes in terms of music, but the whole of the new series. Now we see Gallifrey more in this, and it looks brilliant. And it's really nice because the only other times we've seen Gallifrey, but before this point was it all nice, but it's really nice to see a broken down, destroyed Gallifrey, and of what we see of it. It looks really good. We get Donna in this episode, obviously facing the consequences of what happened to her in Journey's End, remembering, and her mind is burning. But then we just get this rubbish resolution that she starts to remember, and then all these masters, civilians come towards her, and then she just wipes them all out and somehow forgets. It's just like the Doctor says, oh, I wouldn't, you think I'd leave her without a defense system? It just makes no sense. It kind of undoes all the good stuff that we did get in Journey's End to do with Donna and her heartbreaking farewell. It's just overwritten in this, which is something I do not like that much. Now we get the the drums are revealed in this episode, and it's a bit underwhelming really for something there like the drums that have been established in the series 3 finale. I really would have hoped that it just wasn't revealed, because that also gives some insanity to the Master, that it's not for a particular reason, he just hears these drums. And obviously it said it started in the Untempered Schism, but there didn't need to be a reason that the Time Lords had planted that in him. It could have just been something that the Untempered Schism drove him to madness, and his just pure insanity made him hear that. There didn't need to be necessarily a reason, as it sort of devalues the Master's insanity. Sadly, we get more of the Cactus People, the Vinvoci. They're just so annoying, even more annoying in this episode than last episode, in fact. I can just not stand these Cactus People. I think it's one of the things that really ruins this episode from being one of the best. One of the points anyway, is just these Cactus People. Why they're in there, I don't know. They could have been disposed for a lot less annoying characters. They're just used as a funny little gimmick that isn't even funny, and it's just irritating, and I just wish that they were not in this episode. Now, we get the White Point Star, which is a diamond that's only found on Gallifrey. And I don't really get what happens, because they just says something for them to get something to break them into needs to be something small that it can fit in. And then Rassilon just points this White Point Star on his staff, takes it off, and then just throws it at a hologram of Earth. And then suddenly it comes firing down into Earth. How that works, I don't know. Which is a bit confusing. I didn't really see the relevance of this White Point Star, really. Doctor and Wilf, whilst on the ship, have a really nice conversation about the gun when the Doctor tries to hand Wilf his gun, but the Doctor refuses. And I really like what Wilf says. It's a really nice touching moment between the pair. Wilf's just crying because he's like, the Master's gonna kill you, just take the gun, please, just take the gun. And the Doctor's like, I can't. Ultimately not doing it because of that's who the Doctor character is. He doesn't use weapons. But then the ruin is ultimately ruined when they say the Time Lords have returned, and he picks up the gun and he jumps out. Although it is pretty cool that he uses the gun, and you can see why, because it shows that the Time Lords aren't the nice people that the Doctor says. It's like he says that's how he chooses to remember them. The Time Lord changes them. It ultimately kind of does ruin that really nice scene between the Doctor and Wilf. So, as expected, we get the last mention of David Tennant's iconic line, "Allons-y," and we do sadly hear the last "Allons-y" when the doctors are flying the Vinvoce ship. And it's like, there's time like these that call for a word so great and powerful, and then they're like, what is this word? And he's like, "Allons-y." And I really think it's sad, yet it's a really good use of it for David Tennant's iconic catchphrase that we hear the very last of it. Now the Time Lords return. I really like how they return. I think it's really cool when Gallifrey returns, and I really like that when you see it next to Earth, it sort of like appears using the same effect as a TARDIS. I really like how it sort of like materialises there, but possibly Gallifrey is one big TARDIS, which would be pretty cool. So I like that effect there. I think it's cool how the Time Lords return, that band there, and how Rassilon's are there, and I really like how that is all done. So jumps out into the Neesmith mansion, and bearing in mind that is a heck of a long distance, he just jumps in there and then lands straight through the glass on the floor, and he looks severely damaged, but somehow it hasn't regenerated because a normal person would die. And this sort of defies logic, seeing as the 4th Doctor fell off a radio tower that wasn't that high really, but then that caused him to regenerate, and the 6th Doctor fell off and hit his head on the TARDIS console, which is barely anything, and he regenerated. So how this, the 10th Doctor didn't regenerate there in the Doctor's regeneration logic, I am not sure. Now we get the gun scene, and the gun scene is really nice where the Doctor keeps on switching between Rassilon and the Time Lords and the Master, and he ultimately chooses neither and shoots the machine to send them back. And I really like how the Master then sacrifices himself to save the Doctor's life. I asked last week that I'm still asking at the end of the story, which really confuses me, is who the hell is the woman? Yes, that woman that keeps on popping up giving Wilf advice. And you see her as one of the people that's standing against Gallifrey returning. But who is she? It's implied that she's possibly the Doctor's mother, but on screen we never find out, which really annoys me. That who was she? I don't think it's a case that we shouldn't know. I just think we should know who the character was, as her motivations therefore are unclear. Now I really like the 4 Nocts revelation. It's implied and you think that it's the Master who's going to kill the Doctor, but ultimately you think he survived, and then you just hear those 4 Nocts and it's Wilf. Now I love how this is handled. It's possibly one of the best moments in the new series. Just the revelation that it was Wilf this whole time, just knocking innocently to ask the Doctor to let him out, is a really good twist and was handled brilliantly. The Doctor saves Wilf, and now this is a scene I absolutely despise. Now many people hate on this episode because the Doctor doesn't want to regenerate and he sees it as dying. Although I'm not really a fan of that whole concept, I don't mind it as it's a different take on regeneration. But this scene I utterly hate. And when people say they don't like the 10th Doctor, they always point to the end of time. And whereas they point to a cafe scene, I don't really see it. This scene, I absolutely dislike his Doctor in this. Now, it's when the Wilf knocks on the thing, yes, and he has a temper tantrum that says, "It's not fair!" And then Wilf says, "Oh, leave me, I'm an old man." He's like, "Yeah." And then the Doctor's like, "Yeah, why should I save you? You're not remotely important, you've had your time. But me, I could do so much more." And he shouts it, and it's just horrible to watch, because the Doctor is being so arrogant and selfish, and it's completely against his character. And then, when, he ultimately walks up and decides to do it, and, Wilf says, don't do that, and he says, Wilf, it would be my honour. But that's clearly not what he said, like, a minute ago with all his temper tantrums belittling Wilf and saying he's so much better. I wouldn't be surprised if Wilf turned around and said, F off, Doctor, just leave me to die, go on and be the greatest you can be, because that's all you care about. It's just like, David Tennant is so unlikable in this scene, and I really don't know why he just couldn't save Wilf, because it just annoys me every time having to sit through that scene, knowing why this is a scene why many people hate the end of time and hate the 10th Doctor. And while I quite like the 10th Doctor, I can completely understand why people will hate him based on this very scene. The Doctor go on this farewell tour that lasts, well, like about 15 minutes. Seeing Martha, Mickey, the granddaughter of the woman of Nurse Redfern in Human Nature, Family of Blood, Captain Jack, Alonzo, Rose, and Jackie in this big farewell tour. And while many people dislike this, it goes on too long, what was the point of it, it's too self-indulgent. I really like this scene, and mainly just because of the music. I love Veil as a track, and I just think as it plays, it's really good. It's really nice to see all these characters again, most of them for the last time. There's one thing I don't like, is that when the Doctor visits Wilf on Donna's wedding day and gives them the winning lottery ticket, and when the Doctor's about to go off, that Wilf salutes him as he's about to cry because he knows the Doctor's going to go off, and the Doctor just doesn't salute back and he just walks off. And I cannot understand why the Doctor doesn't just salute back and go into there, because when he visits Captain Jack before and Captain Jack salutes, the Doctor salutes back, so why he wouldn't salute Wilf, I just can't understand, and I just really don't like it. That just really bugs me that he just doesn't salute Wilf back. But it's a really nice scene, especially the scene between him and Wilf that he goes back, no, between him and Rose, sorry, when he goes back. Although Billie Piper looks nothing like she did when she played Rose in this scene, and they've obviously really tried to make it her look like how she did in 2005. It's a nice scene between the 10th Doctor and Rose anyway, and then when he starts to feel like sick, and then he's struggling to get to the TARDIS, where he sees the mood, and the music that plays there is really good as well, but he keeps on falling down, he can't see properly, but he eventually gets in the TARDIS. And we get onto a regeneration scene, and then Valdichian plays, which is a really nice track. He's walking along, he pulls the TARDIS lever down, he goes up it, and he's like, I don't want to go, and then ultimately regeneration. It's a really explosive regeneration, which I can't really understand. So the 9th Doctor absorbs all of the time vortex, yet doesn't cause any damage. The 10th Doctor absorbs a little bit of regeneration, blows up the whole TARDIS. Yet it's a really cool destructive scene, and then Matt Smith comes out. And this scene with Matt Smith, although I like it, I don't think it's the correct scene that they should have played. There's a lot of skepticism with Matt Smith's Doctor. There's a ton of Tennant hardcore fans that really didn't want him to come in. Already the dialogue expressed in this episode sort of sabotaged him and Moffat's era to a certain extent, and this scene really didn't do his Doctor any favours. Although I think it's a good comedic scene, it's not really that good trying to display Matt Smith's Doctor on first glance, and then trying to sell it to a ton of Tennant fans who probably didn't plan on watching it anyway, but to try and get their interest back with this new Doctor, it wasn't exactly the best scene you could have chosen. Although Matt Smith's my favourite Doctor, and the following episode, 11th Hour, I think is absolutely brilliant in displaying Matt Smith's Doctor, I think that this kind of little scene wasn't the best in trying to sell the 11th Doctor to a ton of fans that already probably weren't on board with his casting. Now, onto the cast. Everybody in the farewell tour, apart from people who are in the episode besides the farewell tour, will not appear on the cast, as I don't feel they do enough, really, deserve to be on the cast list, and the cast list would be really long if I did them all, and I wouldn't really be able to comment on their performance. But anyway, the Doctor, played by David Tennant, a superb performance, although some of the dialogue and actions of the 10th Doctor aggravate me at times. Tennant's performance is still brilliant. By Bernard Cribbins, and a once again magical performance in Wilf's last appearance. Master, played by John Sim, and although he is a bit cheesy to begin with, towards the end when he's confronting Rassilon, is a really good performance. I really love his Master towards the end when he sacrifices himself to save the Doctor. It's a shame that all this really good character development is ultimately kind of ruined by the Doctor falls in Series 10. Played by Timothy Dalton, and he has more to do this week, and he's absolutely brilliant. He's a really great presence on screen. He's a really good, intimidating villain, one of the best of the RTD era, in fact, although he is effectively the last villain of the RTD era. Played by Catherine Tate, and this is again her last performance, and it's another decent, good performance from David Tennant's best main companion. Played by Jacqueline King, and she's not in it that much, but is still good when she is. Played by Laurie Larin, one of the male cactus person, and he's not as annoying as he was last week, but it's still a pretty lame performance. Adams, played by Sinead Keenan, the female cactus, and she's the most annoying one this week. It's an utter terrible performance. I absolutely hate this character. He comes off as really annoying this week. Played by Claire Bloom, and although a resolution to her character is not given, she still gives a nice mysterious performance. Finally, we have the 11th Doctor, played by Matt Smith, and although I don't think the scene, how it was written, was appropriate for the ending of this episode, I think Matt Smith's performance is absolutely brilliant, given as a precursor to the brilliant performances that would come in his era. Overall, my score. Now, I like this episode. I didn't like it as much as last week, whereas I think that not necessarily amazing parts happened last week, but not many bad things happened either. I think a lot of better parts were in this episode, but then there was a lot of more annoying parts in this episode, and I didn't feel that I enjoyed it as much because of the bad parts that frustrated me in this episode. Although I was acting as a good send-off for David Tennant's Doctor, and a reasonable introduction to Matt Smith's Doctor, although that could have been handled better. I'm going to give this episode an 8 out of 10. I'm going to give The End of Time Parts 1 and 2 an 8.5 out of 10.
Now it's time for one last vow. Like all your other selves. 11's hour is over now. The clock is striking 12s.
Exterminate! The siege of Trenzalore is now begun. Silence will fall!
Clara, step away from it.
What are you? Why do I keep forgetting you?
The Time Lord has entered the trap.
You will die in silence, Doctor! All your associates will die!
Help him change the future. Do it!
The Time War will begin anew, and this world will burn.
The Doctor is regenerating! The Doctor is regenerating! Exterminate the Doctor!
If you want my life, come and get it!
Please like this video if you have enjoyed it, and if you want to see more content from my channel, then please hit subscribe. Hello Madam. So, Voyage of the Damned. I haven't watched this one in absolutely ages, so I can't really remember much apart from it had the host there, it had the Titanic and the Doctor in a tux. But anyway, This introduces the new Doctor Who title music that was used right up until the end of time, which is one of my favourites. I really love it. I love Tennant's costume in this one. Not only does he look great in the tux, but I really like the blue suit variant that we get right at the start. This episode has a wonderful array of characters. It has obviously lovely characters like Astrid, Alonso, Rixton, Slade, Foon and Morvin, Mr. Copper, and Banakafalata, which it really introduces some really good characters. This episode introduces the first appearance of Wilf, although it is brief. I love the host as a monster, and they are actually quite creepy. Kylie Minogue's in this episode, and she's not actually that bad. She's quite good as Astrid. That speech from Tennant is one of the best he's ever done. I really loved that speech. Max Capricorn's underwhelming as the big bad, though. I'd rather that it was something else, because he's very underwhelming as the control of the host. Astrid's death is a bit emotional, but it is a bit overplayed myself. We get hints of the Time Lord victorious, like when the Doctor's trying to send Astrid back, get Astrid back, he says, "I can do anything," and then when Mr. Copper says that it's good that you can't control life or death. And we get the Series 4 trailer at the end, which is really good. I really love this episode as a Christmas special, and an episode 8.5 out of 10. See you guys next week.